I don't think I can be heard right now. That's a bit of a problem. Okay, I think I can be heard now. Okay. So, so welcome to election night in Fiji. Um, Today we're going to be with you for the next half an hour or so. My name is Atrophia, and I'm going to be presenting election night as the main anchor. And over the last week or so, we've seen candidates come in front of you, the Fijian people, and now tonight it's result night. It's showtime. We're going to be seeing what's going to happen across Fiji today. And for Fijian Labour, we have just a guy named Noah, who is quite a well-known politician across Fiji. And for Fiji First, we have Emperor Palpatine, and we have an independent Gigum, who I believe was the former Speaker of the House of Assembly, or is currently. So this time we're going to begin with, instead of an exit poll, we're going to begin with an election prediction, which is essentially similar to an exit poll, apart from we don't really input from the public. This is just what we personally, as an election night team, predict the outcome will be. So we're going to now pan over to that now. I'm just going to wait a minute so I can get our election prediction up. And our election prediction is as follows. We believe that Fijian Labour will win a landslide in this election. We believe Fijian Labour will be on 9 seats, which is well over a majority, and that just a guy named Noah will be Prime Minister at the end of the night. We believe Fiji First will be on 2 seats, and Gigum the Independent will have a seat at the end of the night. So, this election looks to have been won on a considerable margin. It looks like that the people of Fiji have decided quite openly what they want this election, and they've chosen Fijian Labour. Fijian Labour, this isn't the first time that people have chose Fijian Labour. Fijian Labour have won quite a bit of elections and have been in power until the interim government, which happened recently. And I think it's very interesting what we're going to be seeing tonight, because I think the exit poll is accurate. Don't quote me on that, but I think the election prediction is accurate. I think it looks like Fijian Labour are going to be on top by a considerable margin, and this isn't the first time Fijian Labour have been on top. As I've said, it looks like Fijian Labour are going to be heading for that landslide that they so desperately needed. And it looks like this isn't really a unique election in terms of numbers, but I think what is actually quite unique is the opposition numbers. I mean, the prediction has Fiji First on 2 seats. That would be astounding in terms of how low the seats are for an opposition party. I think we're looking for probably the smallest opposition in a long time, which I think will be very interesting. But I also think that for the duration of the term, the House of Assembly might function as a bit of a one-party sort of system where one party has dominance over all of the others, and I think that's going to be really interesting to see. Personally, I think we're going to be seeing quite a bit of things of the next term when it comes to that. I think we're also going to be seeing the opposition really sort of trying to familiarise themselves with the system and sort of get themselves into the system, trying to oppose government, however on a smaller scale than we've seen in recent times, which I think will be a very, very interesting thing for Fiji, because I don't think we've had an opposition that is as small as this election prediction is trying to say. So I think that will be very interesting over the next term. So I think we're going to be seeing our first guest now. We're going to be bringing Epic Noah on. So, Epic Noah, I'm going to be dragging him onto the VC. Oh, hello, Epic Noah. Your mic first, please. So, welcome to the show. Can you just introduce yourself to our viewers before we begin?
Yeah, so of course my name's Epic Fabe. I used to formerly be Prime Minister of Fiji, along with Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs. Um, I've been in Fiji for a while. I've also been around the community for a while and stuff like that. So yeah, that's not much about myself, but yeah.
Okay. So if I'm correct, you're not currently in a party, so that's quite good in terms of we can get your impartial point of view.
Yeah, I'm
So
not in a party.
so you're not in a party, so that is quite good for the show because that means it can be a little bit more interesting. So, Epic Noah, you've seen the election of the past term or so. Well, not the past term. You've seen the election over this past week. I mean, I'm just wondering, what do you think when it comes to the election? What are your predictions?
Well, I mean, Fijian Labour, they have had quite a good campaign. Their manifesto didn't come out until I think today, after I think 2 hours before voting closed. Which is a strange time to release a manifesto, but at least they got it out regardless. Fiji first, it's a good result for them, if I'm honest. From someone who is leader who isn't, I'm not too sure if he's well known or not, but he's actually managed to pull Fiji first, whoever his name is. I'll just refer to him as Discord name, Chip Scream. He's managed to pull off 3 seats for Fiji first, which is quite a good result. Considering it's his first election as leader. Just a guy, he's been in the political scene of Fiji for a while, starting as Minister for Foreign Affairs and then serving in Fijian Labour's government throughout the whole of its existence, apart from one, which is the first Sequatic ministry. I think I think my predictions are that Fiji Labour will win as predicted, because their campaign, they've really set out what their promises are. Fiji First, they've also done a very good campaign as well. Not bad to them. Fair play to them as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how this will work throughout the upcoming parliamentary term.
I have to agree with you on the fact that Fijian Labour look quite clear to win tonight. But I think the other story of the night is how big will the opposition be? I mean, our prediction, the official prediction is 2 seats, but I mean, can it really be that small? Does anyone know that small? Quite frankly, I mean, do you think that? How small do you think the opposition's going to be after this election? And how do you think things are going to work out?
I mean, we when I was serving as deputy prime minister under Sequatic's first government, the opposition had like 3 or 4 seats. So, I mean, it's not surprising that the opposition is going to be small, to be honest, because Fijian Labour, they've dominated the whole, they've dominated the political scene for basically the whole existence, and the whole time they've been a party. And it's the opposite in terms of how small the opposition will be. I don't think it matters about how small they be. It's just it matters about how well they will scrutinize the government. If they can scrutinize the government well, then that will really set them up good, because it puts them in the right scene. It makes them look good, and it will make them perhaps increase their seats coming up to the next election.
I don't know about you, but one of the things that I really, really like about oppositions is that sometimes they can be a bit in your face if you're the government. I mean, you have them scrutinising, you have them on your back like a lot of the time when you're in opposition. I mean, when you're in government. I mean, do you think that we're going to be seeing a lot of back and forth this time when it comes to like questions, rebuttals? And do you think that a small opposition will prevent that from happening?
It's going to be an interesting term. That's what I'll say. It's going to be an interesting term because everything. Excuse me. Sorry, I thought my mic was not working. Then, as I was saying, everything can happen in a term. Everything can happen in terms of what will happen to the opposition, what will happen to the government, etc., etc. But it's an interesting term. There could be drama. There could be bipartisan bills being passed, etc., opposition and government working together. We just don't know because the term hasn't started yet.
I'm sorry I have to interrupt sort of mid-interview. But it looks like we have a few calls, so we have 3 calls to begin with. So we have 1 seat for Fiji first, which has been declared. We also have 2 seats for Labour. So if these first results are anything to go by, it looks like Labour have double the seats of Fiji first. Only if these results are to go by, that is. I mean, this is right at the beginning of the night. I mean, I don't think these are going to have any wider correlations to the results, but I think it sort of speaks volumes that Labour does have quite a considerable lead over Fiji first. Another thing I wanted to ask you is, I mean, you've seen Fiji for quite a while, and you've been Prime Minister of Fiji. I just want to ask a question. I mean, you've obviously been around for quite a long time. I've already mentioned that. But one of the things I want to ask is, what do you think the future of Fiji's political climate is going to be? Because we've seen for quite a while that it's been quite one-sided in terms of what we're going to be seeing recently, because we've seen Fijian Labour dominate the Fijian political scene for so long. I mean, do you think Fijian Labour is going to continue to dominate? And do you think that any successful future opposition party in terms of votes is ever going to pop up?
If Fijian Labour can keep up this momentum of having good campaigns, then yeah, I can see them having a good dominating the political scene. But if the opposition can actually find out their errors and why they didn't get into government and fix them, then I think perhaps they could be able to charge for government and make it perhaps a minority, and then that'll make things really interesting. But if Fijian Labour keeps up this momentum and keeps having good campaigns, then yeah, like I said, we could see him having government for a while. They have been in government for a while because they kept up this really good campaign momentum. They've really set up their promises clear, and I think that's what every other party needs to do. I think if Fiji first were to do that next election, I think they could make it a minority government. That will make things really interesting. But in terms of if it'll be a one-sided, I think that there will come a point where it'll be two-sided. So anything can happen, and a King's Speech could fail, etc. But right now we're in a point where Fijian Labour have done well for themselves ever since they came to existence. At the start, before they came, nobody knew them as well. They knew them as just some new party, but they've stocked up to the top, and now we see them dominating government. And if any other future party comes in and perhaps does the same, then it could be a two-sided thing. But like I said, I like to be realistic, so we don't know what could be. But if I could know something for sure, is that one day it will come a point where it'll be two-sided.
I totally agree with you. I think it being more two-sided is quite inevitable, and we saw that quite recently, kind of before the interim government, like around a month or so before the interim government. And just another thing I want to mention briefly is we actually have a poll on stream right now. If anyone viewing wants to partake in it, it's asking, who do you think will win the Fijian election? And it's looking like 70% of viewers believe that Labour will win the election. I mean, this isn't really surprising stuff. I mean, in other words, you could phrase it as, often these "who do you think will win the election" polls can also be reworded, and it'd be the exact same result. So I think, even though this particular poll is asking who will win, I think what we could also sort of infer from that is that there is a strong feeling that Fijian Labour will win tonight. And also, we have a few other calls mid-interview, so apologies about that, Noah. So we have 2 more seats for Labour, and we have the independent Gigam has actually got his seat. So, we have 2 seats for Labour and we have 1 seat for the independent Gig'em. So what are you thinking about the results so far? I believe we're at 1 seat for Fiji First, 4 seats for Labour, and we're at 1 seat for the independent. What are you thinking of the results so far?
He's literally he's done very well for this campaign. I like when independents run because they go off their values, what they do, because it might not line up with any other party. So I like when independents run because they can perhaps go off their values and what they see best in Fiji, and it also spices up the political campaign, because they can take away a seat and etc. And Gig'em, he's the independent candidate who's promised to be the voice of the people, and I think that's what really got them interested in him because he's promised to be that voice, and I think people will be expecting him to be that voice of the people. I think the latest results coming from Fijian Labour is that it's going to be very good in there. Give me a second.
Another thing that I just want to briefly mention, just before Noah comes back, is I'll wait for a second for Noah to come back.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back. I apologise.
Okay,
I am back.
Okay, so one of the things I wanted to ask you was, it's looking like just a guy named Noah is going to be Prime Minister. And I think that's going to be quite interesting. I just wanted to ask you, kind of personally, about what do you think? What sort of Prime Minister do you think just a guy named Noah is going to be?
Well, I think he'll be a Prime Minister who has experience and who has climbed who has had to work from scratch to get to this point. I think he'll be the Prime Minister that perhaps will do well in his position. He's had lots of terms in government, starting in the interim government back in a while ago under Doug Domadom. I can't pronounce his name. I think that's how I pronounce it. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is he's climbed all the way from the bottom, and now he's got to the top and then ever since he joined Fijian Labour, he's basically stuck there because he's felt like that camp. He's in that camp. He's been that really good campaigner, and he's really led the party to another victory. And I think he's gone off based off previous government terms and has perhaps made his own promises, which I think has convinced the citizens of Fiji. And I think what he'll be as Prime Minister he'll be a very good Prime Minister if he continues to keep this momentum and if he can fulfill his promises as he promised in his manifesto. So if he can do that, then I can see him being a very good Prime Minister. That's definitely for sure.
Thank you for joining us, Epic Noah. It's been a pleasure. I think you've offered really good insight tonight as to what's going to come. So thank you, Epic Noah, for that.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So, Epic Noah seems to believe Fijian Labour is going to win. That's also my belief. I think Fijian Labour is going to win this election. I think it looks quite inevitable. We have another call. So we have, I believe, 2 more seats for Fijian Labour. So that puts them up to, I believe, if I'm looking at this correctly, to just have a look. I believe that means we're 50% for Fijian Labour. There's no way that the opposition parties can catch up to them at this point. I'm going to officially call this now. It looks like we're going to be having a Fijian Labour majority government. So that is confirmed, I believe, a Fijian Labour majority government. We do not believe that any of the other parties are going to catch up to them. That is what it's looking at right now. So we have them on 6 seats right now, I believe, and that, I think, is a majority. So we have a Fijian Labour majority government right now, it's looking like. We also have, I believe, 2 seats for Fiji First, which is bang on our exit poll prediction. So things are looking very interesting right now. I think what we're going to be seeing is Fiji has really come out in favour of Fiji Labour tonight. I mean, we've seen overwhelmingly that Fiji Labour too, and this isn't the first time it's been just overwhelming that we've seen them come on top, which I think is really interesting. And quite frankly, it's quite different to what Fiji was last year. I mean, there were quite close elections, but now it looks like Fiji Labour have dominated the political scene yet again, and it looks like just a guy named Noah will be the next Prime Minister of Fiji, and it looks like that's what's going to happen right now. So, we're going to be joined by Epic Noah once again, just in the lead up to this, a potential next interview. So, hello, welcome back, Epic Noah. So we're going to,
I'm back.
so it looks like Fiji and Labour have already got this in the bag. I mean, they're pretty much a majority now. They're at the 50% mark, but I mean, it's inevitable that they're going to get another seat at this point. So I think we're ready to call that just a guy named Noah will be the next Prime Minister of Fiji. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's very well deserved because, like I mentioned earlier, Fijian Labour, if you can, they pulled off a very good campaign. I think everyone pulled off a good campaign. I think he, like I said earlier, he's also climbed up from the bottom and gone from the bottom, and he's climbed up to the top. And because of the way he's managed to put out the name and brand of what the party is doing, then I think that's really convinced voters, especially of his experience as well. Experience. And I think everyone will be impressed by that. I think they'll be impressed by what he's accomplished throughout his time. So I think it's very well deserved, and congratulations to him. Congratulations to him.
Yeah, anyone who's just tuned in, we are ready to project that just a guy named Noah has been elected Prime Minister of Fiji. It looks like just a guy named Noah will be the next Prime Minister of Fiji. There's no doubt about that. And I think things are looking to be quite interesting right now. What I think we have to look at, really, is how big the opposition is going to be. I mean, I've voiced throughout tonight that I believe that the size of the opposition is going to matter quite a bit too. So I'm waiting for that to sort of come through, so we can see how big the opposition this time is going to be. And we have another just quickly. So it looks like there is another seat projection, and it looks like we have another seat for Fiji First, which puts them at around 3 seats, I believe, currently.
Yeah,
they're on
3 seats.
So that's over what we predicted originally. Our prediction had them on at 2, so and they're on 3. So I mean that's a good sign for Fiji Labour, don't you think? I mean for Fiji First, don't you think that they're going to have bigger representation as an opposition? Just a question to you, Epic Noah. Do you think that they might be pushing? Do you think that they could get 4?
I mean it's a possibility. It's a possibility they could get 4. If it is 4, then that is very impressive. Fijian Labour, if you were to go off gig and perhaps being opposing the government, then you would have 5 seats in opposition, 6 in government. So that give them only 1 seat majority, and that's going to be very interesting because some bills that the Fijian Labour might propose in government, and if the 5 parliament members, including the independent candidate, show up and oppose this bill, then you could see Fijian Labour not being able to get their bill through. So in terms of that aspect, that could be a very interesting side of the story. And if they could get forward, then it will massively help them to stop the government from passing bills which they may not agree with, etc. So yeah, that's really my take on it.
Yeah, another thing, I believe that we have 2 more seats to come. So I think we are going to be looking at a Fijian Labour majority, but now the other thing is, it isn't actually. I don't think tonight's determining factor is about how big the opposition's going to be. I think it's going to be how big is Fijian Labour majority going to be. I mean, is it going to be a big majority? Are they going to have a small majority? Are things going to be more interesting? I think those are really the factors to look out for tonight, and I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see how Fijian Labour are going to cope in the assembly, even if they have very slim majority. How they going? I think it's going to be very curious to see how the Great Council of Chiefs, which I'm proudly a member of, participate with the House of Assembly. I think those things are going to be very, very interesting to look out for this term, and I'm very excited to see how things pan out over the course of the next term. And we now have an official call. So this is now no longer opinion. This is the actual results. So breaking news: Fijian Labour have won the election. Just a guy named Noah is elected Prime Minister of Fiji. So it looks like just a guy named Noah has secured that majority that he needed. And the final results are, I'm going to read the votes out too on loud. So, Fijian Labour have ended this election with 8 seats. So that is quite a big majority. 8 out of 12 seats. So that just means that you have a 4-seat opposition. But the opposition includes the independent, of course. So our results in full are the Labour Party, led by just a guy named Noah, 8 seats, 24 votes. Fiji First, 3 seats, 8 votes. Higam is the independent candidate, 1 seat and 4 votes. And the overall turnout is 39 votes, which was down 20 from the last election. So Fijian Labour have won a landslide in this election. They have double the seats than anyone else combined, and it looks like that they're on track to keep their steady grip on the political climate in Fiji. So I just want to go to you quickly, Epic Noah, before we wrap up the show. What do you think about turnout? So turnout was 39 this time, and that's down 20 votes. What do you think this turnout means for Fiji?
Well, I mean, we've just come off the stage where we've had an interim government due to breakdown of opposition party, which was formerly National Federation Party. We've just come off an interim government, and so of course, vote turnout will slip a little bit. But I think we'll see. I think next election we could see an increase in vote turnout. But it's. I don't think it'll really matter for Fijian Labour right now, as they have won a majority, a huge majority. And I think it's crucial that if everyone comes out to vote, then it will really show that democracy is strong. And not only that, but that it will really show that Fiji's political scene is growing again, because having an interim government is not what you want to do, but if you have to go to that stage where you have to be in an interim government, then I think you have to do it. But I think next election we could see more votes coming, more votes being cast, and we could see the vote turnout increasing, because we came to a point, I think a few elections ago, where we had a record turnout, high vote turnout. I can't remember what the exact number is, but it was a high turnout based on the record. So I think we could break that record if we help them voters can encourage more people to vote. So I don't think many people voted this election, and I think this I think we have to encourage new people to really get involved in democracy and to vote, really. So I think next season, if we can encourage more people to vote, then the vote turnout will increase. I don't predict it to be like by miles, but perhaps a bit. But yeah, that's my take.
Briefly by Binny Boy 19. So Binny Boy, you've just joined us, so I'm just going to read out some of the results from tonight. So Binny, the results are Labour on 8 seats, 24 votes, Fiji First on 3 seats, 8 votes, and Giggum the Independent on 1 seat with 4 votes. The overall turnout was 39 votes, and that's down 20 from last time. So what do you think about the results, Binny?
Hi, these results so far, are they the total results?
These are the totals. So it's a Labour landslide, basically.
Right. So firstly, I'm not really surprised because we've come out of a rough period, really. Interim government, and then before that, we had probably the peak of political activity. And this was somewhat expected, but I think it was mentioned here before. But there is going to be a bit of a surge afterwards, maybe in the next 2 or 3 months. It's going to be interesting to see how the next government does, because it is going to be another Labour government. But yeah.
Yeah, I think Fiji is going to be back in terms of the political scene. Even though Labour are at majority right now, well, they're going to be at a majority for the next 2 months or so. Fiji is back politically, and I think there's no doubt about that. 39 votes for your first election back in a while is still quite commendable, actually. So my final take on the election is that I'm not really surprised fully at the results, but I think it's going to be very interesting over the next term about what we're going to see. So I'd like to thank my guests, Binny and Epic Noah, for joining me this election night, and thank you, viewers, for sticking with me over the past 34 minutes. It's been an honour to host election night for, I think this is the 3rd or 4th time. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for watching election night. And see you in 2 months.